Thank you for joining us on episode 25 of Galaxy Tenants. Today we head to Berkley, Michigan for a conversation with Brandon Picard, Director of Business Development at Gamer Saloon, and we feature a couple of songs from Octave Cat in the following order: Koji and Send It to Donnie. We hope you enjoy our show and stay safe out there.
All right, I'm here with my brother, Brandon.
Hi, brother. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's weird. You're the first family member, I think, that I've interviewed on here. And
cool.
I'm so fascinated by what you do in the world of the physical sports world and the virtual sports world and how those two things are kind of compared and contrasted. But let's start by you telling people what you do.
Yeah. So I work for a company called Gamer Saloon, and we are a website and now a full app that allows gamers from around the world to compete in video game tournaments and 1v1 competitions for real cash prizes. So you can basically jump on Gamer Saloon. You create a free username, you make a deposit of any amount you want, and you decide the amount that you want to wager on a game of your choice. Typically, we are in the sports titles, so NHL, NBA, Madden, FIFA. We make our money by taking a rake of each pot. So you would play a game on our site, say you wanted to play for $10 and you were going to play NHL 20 right now. You would post an open challenge for $10. You'd call out the rules. You can't be the Capitals because you don't play well against Ovechkin. Or so you set the parameters, whatever you want to set, the time limit of the periods. This is the amount we're playing for. And we take 14% of the total entry fee. So if it was $10, we'd be taking $1.40 from each player. So you put in 10 to win $8.60 in that scenario. We run multiplayer tournaments, so anywhere from 8, even 4 actually, up to 256 players in the tournament, where everybody pays an entry fee, and say the top 5 to 10 would get paid out in that scenario.
In those larger tournaments, are you guys are setting the parameters for the rules and all that?
Yeah, so there's kind of just a baseline for rules when we run the bigger tournaments, and that's just like an industry-wide standard, basically, for those sorts of things.
I would assume you'd have to have an industry-wide standard just to create a level playing field across the board for statistics and things
Sure.
like that.
Yeah. I think that's what's unique about Gamer Saloon, though, is that we kind of allow the players to set the parameters in that regard for their individual matches, and I think that's what people like. Mm-hmm. I mean, when money's on the line, people like to have a little bit of control and a little bit of say as to what's going on.
And as long as both parties agree to it, then you're playing by those rules.
Playing for money. Here we are.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of the gist of Gamer Saloon. We run a handful of live events per year. Obviously, with COVID going on right now, those have kind of been halted rather quickly. But our most recent one, we worked with the Detroit Red Wings, actually, at Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. We had a bunch of online qualifiers that led up to a final event at LCA during a Red Wings game with like 16 of the best NHL players. All these guys flew out on their own dime to compete for, it was like $5,000 was the cash prize. So like if you didn't win the tournament, you were out, $1,000 because you had to pay for your expenses. But for those guys to have that experience and come out and, have a competitive situation like that where you're playing against the best guys in the world on the big stage, they don't get the opportunity that much to do that. So everybody jumped.
That's super cool. What's also cool is I want to talk about we grew up playing hockey. We're both from Detroit. We grew up playing hockey, and that's kind of what you did in that area. You were an exceptional hockey player.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, of course, man. It was fun to watch.
Used to wreck me on rollerblades in the dead end, though. I will give you that edge.
Growing up, we used to go to Red Wings games and things like that. How was it for you to operate a tournament inside Little Caesars Arena in that setting where the Red Wings play?
It was very cool. We kind of got a behind-the-scenes look at certain things. I wish it was at Joe Louis, obviously, because that's where I spent my childhood, but it was second best, and it was awesome. So the final game, how it worked was that we had 16 players compete in a single elimination bracket. So some of these dudes flew out to Detroit. We had a guy come from Alaska. There's people from all over the country. Set up, you play one game, you lose, you're out. So 8 people flew to Detroit to play one game. So for next time, we talked about, the setup in a little bit, and just it was a matter of time, and we were just kind of pressed because of how this worked. But typically these tournaments will be best of 3, so at least you get to play a couple games minimum. So what we did was we got to the final 16 started, we got down to our final 2. The Red Wings then played a physical game on the ice. So we played this pregame. When the Red Wings finished their game, the final 2, we moved down to the Red Wings bench, actually at ice level, and the dudes played on the big screen.
Oh my God.
On the ice. So that was pretty sweet. Actually, they were sitting on the bench, but super cool experience. I got to walk, all the halls in LCA and kind of see some behind the scenes stuff. So it was great. Yeah, it was very cool.
That's very cool. I also want to talk about growing up playing hockey and knowing what it takes to condition your body, what it takes to physically put yourself out there and to take the hits and to grind it out. How do you compare the physical aspect of playing hockey with the virtual aspect that is taking shape in these competitions? Here's why I'm asking this. It's because I'm seeing that a lot of this virtual stuff is being considered for, quote, professional sports, or the Olympics, I know, was considering some gaming. How do you compare and contrast the two things? And are gamers athletes?
Sure. So obviously there's a fine line. Many sports aren't specifically that physical. Take golf, for instance. You're kind of just walking around a course, swinging a stick every 5 minutes. So, like, is that physical? Yeah, you're physically hitting a ball. But I think that the mental aspect of it, I see it on a day-to-day basis. We run streaming leagues to where we'll have, guys at home cammed in with their live cams on feed playing video games. Twitch, I'm not sure if you must be familiar with Twitch, but a massive streaming app for gamers, and you can if you just tune in to an NHL stream or an NBA stream and watch these guys compete, they're mentally drained. Like, it's almost more mentally draining than a physical sport. I think at least in a physical sport, you get to exert some energy, which might make the mental aspect a little bit easier. So yeah, I think that depending on the person, I think it's fair to call esports a sport, and I don't see why you wouldn't, right?
I don't know, because I have this weird sense about it. I always thought of video games as this kind of like pleasurable recreational thing, but then again, I was never playing for hours and days and weeks and
sure. And you say recreational thing, but it's moving in a direction to where it's not just recreational anymore, right? Like these guys, there's thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of people that are playing video games as a full-time career. Not a lot in the sports titles, which is funny. Like when we think of video games, you and I probably, like, the sports titles are a lot of the games that we played growing up. Like I just used to wreck you in '94, NHL '94 all the time.
I don't recall that.
Well, I don't know if you weren't in the room or where you were, but you were getting destroyed.
I remember the game, and I don't remember you ever beating me, but I do remember playing that game. Yeah.
Yeah. So beyond the sports titles, there are some humongous titles. I don't have stats in front of me, but like League of Legends, if you've ever heard of that, or Dota, or CSGO and Call of Duty, and all of these games have mainstream leagues that give out, in the millions per year in prizes. So
it's not just sports games, it's RPGs as well, role-playing games?
Okay. So Gamer Saloon is we're really a niche market in the sports titles, just because that's what's worked for us. And the impromptu game for cash, we don't like to use the term gamble, because that's why we're legal, is because it's not considered gambling, is because it's considered a game of skill. So in that regard,
not just odds or chance.
Exactly. You're not just throwing your money out there. You're throwing it out there with somebody who has an advantage, right? And that's what we think of as a game of skill.
How is the competition, camaraderie, and community surrounding this thing? Is it a friendly thing? Is it pretty aggressive? I could see this being, and I don't want to be too presumptuous, but I could see a bunch of, nerdy kids in their basements kind of playing video games and being very cutthroat with one another.
That's the general stereotype, right, of gamers, is like a bag of Cheetos and a Mountain Dew. Your fingers are all crummy, you're fat, and you sit in your basement.
I can relate to 90% of what you just said.
I mean, that might be the case now that COVID's kind of come back and that live events are just kind of off the board right now. But typically, these guys are competing to get on the big stage. Like, if you're considering yourself a gamer and, like, you take it seriously, you're just not that stereotype. You're going to these live events. You have this huge community of people that you lean on and play against and go to the bar with when you're at tournaments and shoot the shit with. And I mean, these are your friends for life. Like, and I've seen it in multiple occasions. We've hosted many tournaments across many different titles, and these guys love each other like brothers. Like, it's a real community of people. So yeah, I think that that stereotype is a little bit misleading. Not to say that there aren't gamers that look and act that way. It's just not typically what we see.
Is it a positive community?
I don't. No, it's not. It's not. It's really not. And it's especially when you're bringing money into the mix, when people are putting their own money on the line. Of course, it's going to be cutthroat. Like, so when you go onto the site, a lot of people utilize our shout box, which is literally like an AOL chat room from like the mid 90s. Sure. That you basically call out people to play games. So I'm reading things here that I'll just go back and read a couple. This is an NBA chat. So Jerome, you ready? Yes, send it. Everyone here has me blocked. Y'all sign up and scared to play me? Why'd you cancel? Xbox, what's up? And this guy goes, Black, let's run it. 2K. I sent you a challenge. Why are you already ducking me? You got me blocked? Stop trying to lie, you bum. So the conversations, as goofy as they are, definitely competitive in nature.
It probably provokes gaming.
All the time. There's just people in this chat box just constantly talking shit to each other.
So is that just a general area where people come to create competition and to structure their gaming, or is that, that typically the front door?
It is. There's a couple ways to get involved, but it sits on the front, the homepage. Like when you log in, like it's just there. You choose your game. So if you want to play NBA, you now are in the NBA chat room basically. And there's just people dropping challenges. So here's a guy who just posted a challenge for $10. Here's a guy who posted a challenge for $5. This guy says PS4 between 5 and 25, low levels only or similar record. Don't waste your time or I will block you. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely competitive. Toxic at times for sure. I can't move past the fact that I've seen some toxic stuff, but again, it's just the nature of the beast, and in any industry where people are putting their own money up in a competitive way, like it's going to be somewhat toxic for sure.
Or any industry that involves humans in general is going to be somewhat toxic.
Yeah.
What are the most popular games for you guys, or what is the most like popular coveted game?
Yeah, so Madden, which is the NFL title, has been the leader of the pack for 14 years. So yeah, we launched Gamer Saloon in 2006, and it started with our founder living in Michigan. His brother was in California. They would play games online for NHL 05 back and forth all the time. They wanted some stakes on the game. They didn't have Venmo and Cash App didn't exist at that time. So it was like, hey, I'll owe you this amount. And Gabe Rubin, our founder, was like, hey, like there needs to be a service for this to where people can come on this third-party community, set up a match. It's a secure place to play. Customer service makes rulings. Our support team will make rulings in the event of disputes, which is a huge part of why we still exist, is our customer support team and the fact that people come on to Gamer Saloon and feel like they have a secure place to play and feel like their money, it's scary to put your money on a website that you don't know about. So our word of mouth marketing, people using our site and being like, hey, this is actually a legit place to play, whether or not you're losing or winning money. If you feel like your money's secure, you're likely going to come back again. So now with all the technology built into the consoles and stuff for, if you and I were to play a game and so real quick, let me just go back to kind of how it works, right? Sure. So you and I would post an open challenge or directly challenge you and say, hey, Justin, I want to play NHL 20. I want to play for $20. Here's the list of rules. Boom, I send you the challenge. Now you have the option to write back, rule changes. If you don't want to play for 20 and you only want to play for 10, you make those comments coming back to me. We agree to terms on a game. The game gets created then, right? So now the game is sitting on Gamer Saloon. The match is created on Gamer Saloon. We take money from each player's account. Boom, it's in escrow now. It's in a safe place. You then go to the console to play your video game. So we would go on the Xbox. We'd play our game. When the game is finished, typically it's the winner that will report the results because the loser's not all that eager to lose their money, so they're not coming back to report. So the winner comes back, reports the results. So if I was the winner, I would come back and report. You would then have a couple hours to either confirm the results, or if you don't confirm the results after 2 hours, it just gets wiped and I get the money. If you don't think that I won and you want to dispute it, you file a dispute. In the event that there's a dispute, our support team then looks at it, and you would then need to provide evidence that you actually won the game. With the technology now on the consoles and stuff, it's everything. You can just record everything. So you basically send clips of the scoreboard at the end of the game with a picture of the guy's username that you're playing. I'm not involved in support, so I'm not sure specifically what they're using to prove their win or loss. Mm-hmm. So if you end up filing a dispute and you lose that dispute, it's like a huge mark on your account, and we take it very seriously. So like depending on the severity, like if you're just blatantly lying, you'll get banned from the site for 60 days or something, which people don't want that. So typically disputes happen. They're just not frequent. Say a few a day that happen, and they're typically with new users. So we've created a really safe place to play, and people feel secure with putting their money on Gamer Saloon, which is great for us.
Just being able to have solid support is huge. I can't imagine going to a site where you're putting money into it and you can't get a hold of anybody. It's not going to make you feel very secure or inclined to continue to use the service, I feel like. Yeah.
Also, you don't want to open too many doors with your support, where you don't want to give people easy access and expect responses within a minute or two. So we do, as old school as it is, we do everything still via email on the support front. There's no chat box, there's no phone, there's nothing like that. It's email support, and it's typically 12 hours for a response, but you still get a response.
That's great.
It's a person, and it's usually issues are handled in one email. So yeah,
I think that's great. What kind of numbers were you guys seeing when you started relative to now? And maybe it's user numbers, maybe it's financials, but how much has the industry grown since '06 to now? And then I want to also take it a step further and kind of compare and contrast where it was right before COVID and where it's at now, and kind of, what benefits or negatives there have been for the gaming industry through COVID. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about first where it started and how the numbers have grown.
Yeah. So like I said, we started in 2006. I don't really have numbers from back then, but what I will say is 3 years ago, so that would be 2017, we had awarded 37 million in prizes, which seems like that's a nice number, right? That's over the course of the first 11 years, 37 million. We are now in 2020 up to 70 million awarded. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the exponential growth in the last few years specifically. And I mean, it's a silver lining for the COVID thing because it sucks for a lot of people. But in the event, for Gamer Saloon, it's been huge for us. The fact that people are, kind of stuck at home and there's not much going on. People are still, making money from unemployment, yet they're not working. I know it's a sad situation for a lot of people, but this kind of allows a lot more people the freedom to jump on a service like ours, and even have the chance to make money in that regard. We've got a lot of people on our site that utilize Gamer Saloon as a full-time job. There's a handful of people that this is what they do for a living, is play games on Gamer Saloon. So yeah, in the COVID regard, we've seen upwards of 300% growth year to year across certain titles. So yeah, it's super, super crazy. Like I said, I don't have real specific numbers regarding before COVID or, the growth since 2006, but
yeah, that's fine. You kind of answered my question and just displaying that it's kind of an exponential thing, especially as of late. How much money can one make playing esports?
Well, in esports in general, depending on what you're doing, there's so many opportunities in esports right now, specifically in the streaming and content world. So a ton of gamers. I'm not sure if you've heard of the big guys, but Ninja, if you've heard that name.
It's so not my world, which is why
Sure.
I'm talking to you about this. But I know that they do a lot of live streams while they're playing. Some of them have podcasts or shows, right?
Yeah. So some of these guys are streaming. Their streaming numbers that are equivalent to playoffs, baseball playoffs or something like that. These guys are polling millions of viewers over the course of whatever, even less than a week. But certain guys will be streaming to 100,000 people at one time.
Just the ad revenue on that,
it's insane.
And for the sponsorship possibilities is insane.
Yeah. Wow. So Twitch also allows, and this is kind of what it's built around, is the subscriber format, to where if you're a viewer and you want to support a certain streamer, you'll pay monthly dues. So it's $5 to become a subscriber for the month. The streamer gets half of that, which is $250, and you as a viewer get in-stream perks. So you get a certain emoji that you get to use across certain channels, and you get to be involved in a streamer-only tournament or whatever it is. You get to be a part of this community for your $5. The streamer gets benefited by making the $250. So these guys, let's just do a quick Google search here, but
sure.
Ninja net worth. So they've got this guy at 15 mil right now. He's a kid from Michigan, grew up in Michigan, now lives in Chicago. He's maybe mid-20s to late 20s. He was rich as shit when he was 16 because he was a good Halo player, so he was making money that way. But now he's all content-based. He's on Twitch, but long story short, he's moved from Twitch now to YouTube, but still just making so much money. In our situation, our competitors are more kind of under the radar guys that might have day jobs and just come home at night and probably light up a fat blunt and pour a glass of cognac and sit down and play games for cash. We have a couple guys that make six figures on our site.
Wow.
A lot of guys that make 30,000+. So it's supplemental too for a lot of people, to where they'll have a full-time job and then they'll come home at night and do what they love anyways. They're going to be playing video games when they get off of work anyways. Why not make some extra money while they do it? So
yeah, I would think there'd be a massive range, especially when you get up into the upper level of sponsorship and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because this might sound cliche, but our parents have always told us you're never going to make anything of playing video games and all this and that. And now all these kids or a lot of these kids are making millions playing video games. So interesting kind of thing.
Yeah.
What is your favorite part about this job and what you do?
Currently, so I mean, I would like to say the live event stuff, just because I've gotten into that the last few years. It's been really fun to organize live events and just kind of work with teams in that regard. I mean, we're a pretty small team. We're 8 guys now, so we're an extremely small team. So to be able to work with, like people like the Red Wings, we worked with the Horizon League, which is a college basketball conference, and kind of see their vision and try to build this vision. It's fun, and seeing the competitors come out and just watching the whole thing kind of come together is it's awesome. And obviously about that because that's what you've done for a long time as well, is create music festivals and these awesome concert venues and things like that. So you've got an idea of how that works. But currently with no live events going on, we're running some streaming leagues right now. We run this thing called the Elite 8, which is a competition for the best NHL 20 players in North America, so Canada and US. So we run these leagues to where it's free to enter. And we run weekly qualifiers on Gamer Saloon. So anybody can enter these things. And if you qualify, so the top 2 from each week qualify to compete in a live stream every Tuesday night. So Tuesday night at 8 p.m., we come on the Gamer Saloon Twitch channel. We've got everything set up. We've got a bracket and graphics, and we usually do giveaways. And we've hired a commentator that's, NHL savvy and knows everything about NHL. And he's in studio and he's, talking about the previous week's stats. And we go ahead and we play out an 8-man tournament live on stream and commentate the whole thing.
It must create a vibe around the event that it's very, like, it's an event. It's an actual thing. You've got,
Sure, yeah. It makes it
professional.
Yeah, it makes it professional. And I think what that does is people like to play on the big stage, right? Like, people want to be recognized. So this Twitch stream has kind of made that possible for your everyday Joe that's doesn't typically get the chance to play on the big stage to go ahead and qualify in these open qualifiers. And it's cool. We get to shout them out a little bit. We get their social channels involved, and we try to kind of fluff them up a little bit just so it's exciting for them and they have a great experience.
Sure. What's the craziest thing that you've seen or experienced in doing this?
Yeah, without putting like a negative connotation on things.
And I know what's going to come to mind for you initially, I think, and that would be the shooting that took place at one of the events, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, I wasn't at the event.
It's one of the craziest things, if not the craziest thing that's happened in the industry, but we don't have to dive into that. But I'm thinking even more like lighthearted, like in the middle of a tournament, all the power goes out, or somebody did something absolutely ridiculous or something.
There's always something that happens at a live event. Nothing ever works out. And so I know I keep referencing NHL, but as a player, like if you're playing NHL, like when we used to play, you versus me, one person would be going up on the screen and the other person would be going down on the screen, right? With the way the game's created now, every single player looks at it as an advantage to go up on the screen. You have a better vision ahead of you. When you're going down, you can't really see what's going on. So everybody wants their own monitor, right? So you need to be playing on your own monitor, on your own console. So now we're connecting to the internet at a live event. So there's always something that could go wrong in that regard. But for me, like, memorable stuff is like we've had a handful of professional athletes venture through Gamer Saloon. I won't be naming names, but as much as I'd love to. And just watching these guys compete for outrageous amounts of money day to day is just, you're just like, holy shit. Like, like, dude sign a contract, like you don't see a guy for a while, he's like kind of quiet, you're like, well, I wonder where so-and-so's been. You see he signs a contract, and the second he signs a contract, he's logging into Gamer Saloon and putting up a challenge for $2,500 that day. So that's like my favorite part of the job. It's just, it's a really hard industry to keep steady, specifically our niche market. Gaming is huge. Gamer Saloon is such a small market because of the titles that we offer, but it's just fun to watch these guys kind of come on and compete for these crazy amounts of money.
It's a fascinating world, especially as it gets bigger and gains credibility, and there's more people watching, and there's more money and viewership involved. It becomes extremely viable, and it's hard for people to now turn their nose up at video games like they once did, and I'm so fascinated by that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see kind of where things head here with a completely different landscape moving forward with live events and large crowds, and that's what a lot of people were banking on in this industry was these, even though you can get, and I think that that's what's happening is a lot of people are starting to see that you can still do these things and have these events remotely. Like you can get away with it and probably do it for a fraction of the cost as a live event. It doesn't create the same atmosphere, but so yeah, it'll be interesting to see where things head with, live events being kind of nixed for now.
Sure. So. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I want to know what if you had to choose one video game, you say you remote island sort of situation, you get to bring one console and one video game. What are you going with? I know you're so old school and you don't play games now. Let me guess. Let me guess first.
I want you to guess. Ahead. I have two answers, but I want you to guess. What would I bring?
I think one is probably Toe Jam and Earl. And Twisted Metal.
I think those are both wonderful guesses.
But they're wrong?
No, I think
Resident Evil.
Sure. So here's the thing. If I run a desert island and I was by myself, I would want the most high-tech VR, coolest thing so that I could experience the most stimulating and
literal
participation in the world in some level. Yeah. But I think you're right, though. Like, I think if it's just for video game purposes, it's going to be Toe Jam and Earl on on Sega. Mm-hmm. It's going to be NHL 97 on PlayStation. Or Twisted Metal 2. I like Jet Moto also, but yeah, very old school. I haven't owned a system in 15 years. Let me ask you this. If I was going to buy a system right now and get into gaming, for me, what should I look at?
You should wait 3 months and buy either the new Xbox or the PS5. It's slated for November release.
How much is a system?
I think they're probably somewhere in the $500 range. Things kind of keep steady in that regard as far as the consoles go. Like, there's not much inflation in the pricing of consoles. Like, you look back at, like, old tabloids of, like, Sega. Sega was, like, $100 or $200, and games were, like, $60, which they're still just $60. Like, it just doesn't change. Like, a video game just costs $60, and that's what it is. So, I think moving forward, yeah. I mean, I would definitely not recommend buying a PS4. Wait for PS5. The graphics are going to be ridiculous. You load into one of these games like a Red Dead Redemption. I don't know if you've heard of that, but you should watch a YouTube clip of that game.
I have.
It's outrageous. The storylines and like it's so interactive. Like it's just awesome stuff. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with the new consoles here. Sweet. Don't make me sound like an idiot.
You did that yourself, and
I know.
I'm going to clean it up as much as I can.
All right, buddy. Talk to you in a bit.
Talk to you in a bit, yeah.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to Galaxy Tenants. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, like, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. For early access to episodes and exclusive content, check us out on Patreon. Also, if you'd like to communicate with us, send an email to galaxytenants@gmail.com or leave a voicemail on the Galaxy Tenants hotline at 303-550-2065.
You've reached the Galaxy Tenants hotline. Please leave a message.